Good morning, it's the Lou Collins radio show here on soundartradio.org. It's 4 minutes past 11. R.I.P. Prince, a great man who was taken too soon over the weekend on Friday. We're going to talk a bit more about Prince and many other things with my guest, who I am delighted has returned to join me on the show, the Mr. David Icke. We haven't spoken for, I think, about 3 years now, but he's back. He's coming back now, so I'm not going to waste any time at all waffling. I'm going to bring the great man in himself right now. So he's on Skype waiting. We've had a chat this morning. Good morning, David. Can you hear me?
I can.
How are you?
I'm all right. I didn't press my button.
Oh, right.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm alive.
You are live. It's been too long. I think the last time we spoke was back at Bilderberg back in 2013. So It's been far too long, and my God, what a few years you've had. The new book has launched, The Phantom Self, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a moment. The forthcoming tour, which is, I believe, sold out in many parts of the world tour. But I opened the show with Prince, David, and Dove's Cry. Now, I saw your video cast on YouTube last night, and I believe you met him back in 2007, was it?
Yeah, it was kind of out of the blue, really. Out of the purple, I guess would be better. But, I had an invitation. Well, you know, he did those, I think it was 21 shows at the O2 in London, and I got this invitation to go to one of the shows and to meet him, because to my astonishment, he read some of my books. And first of all, you know, I'm not a music, you know, kind of connoisseur, to say the least. I stopped evolving with Donovan, you know, in the 60s, musically. But the show was extraordinary. And as I said in the video, when you saw it on an energetic level, there was no point where Prince ended and the music began. It was all one energetic unity. And when I've been reading more about him, since unfortunately he's died, all these massive numbers of songs that he recorded that are in a vault, apparently, there were just so many, he never actually put them out, and that he was, you know, making music morning, noon and night. Well, I could understand that, having watched the show, because, you know, the great composers were getting their inspiration from somewhere that other people weren't. And you could see with Prince that he was connected to I don't know, reality, whatever you want to call it, which basically made him the vibe of music. I mean, not only did he constantly make music and record music, but of course he's famous for the great spectrum of different kinds of music that he produced, and that makes sense too, because he was music, and I would have thought that he couldn't have got it out of his head. It was always with him. So that was an amazing experience, just to see him at work, because I've never seen anything like it. And I can completely understand why people speak of him as they do. Mm. But when I met him afterwards, talked to him for about half an hour, I found a quiet man, a very respectful man, very different to the showman that I saw on the stage for the previous 2 hours. And he was someone, the reason he asked for a chat, who had realized that there were other forces running the world and directing the world than the ones that we are led to believe are doing it, like politicians and such like. So it was, and the other thing that I find amazing too, was that after we'd chatted, because my son Gareth was with me, he's a singer-songwriter, and after we'd had a chat for half an hour, he says, are you coming to the next show? I said, well, where's that? He says, oh, in a few minutes. And after he's done this 2 hour, and literally the music started when it started and it finished when it finished. There was nothing in between. He just seamlessly moved from one song to another, one musical interlude to another, one kind of music to another. It was extraordinary. It was just like watching someone weaving a musical web in front of your eyes. Anyway, to my astonishment, he then went off to quite a large nightclub within the O2 complex, and he just jammed all night with some of the people in the band into the early hours. And so when I've been reading in the last few days how he hardly ever slept, well, I can understand that because I witnessed it. You know, I'm sitting there kind of nodding off. It's late for me. And he's just starting another show, having done 2 hours. It's just extraordinary. I found him a very, very interesting man. And I can only speak as I find. I found him a very nice man and a very deep thinking man. And, you know, we've had so many famous people leave us this year. That's sad. But yeah. when the news of Prince came through, that hit me very, very powerfully because, you know, we've lost someone who did have a mind of his own and was not prepared to be a slave to the system, which of course he proved when he took on the record industry and in fact won. He was a deep thinking man, and of course there are interview clips of him on the radio, on the YouTube. Rather, talking about chemtrails and such like. So he was a man who thought outside the box and certainly did his music way outside the box.
He was a Jehovah's Witness as well, I believe.
Yeah, that surprised me,
yeah.
To be honest, because that's, you know, organized religion is not something that I'm into. And I felt that it was kind of a bit of a surprise because it went against the man that I met in a way. But it was his vehicle for expressing what we call spirituality, and, you know, everyone to their own. You know, I have a simple philosophy: do what you like, so long as you don't impose it on anybody else. And if people want to have a religion and express themselves through a religion, fine, as long as they don't start trying to impose that religion on anyone else. That's where, for me, the line is crossed. So, you know, good luck to him if he got comfort from that and got something out of that. But you go beyond that, and there was a very decent man that I met that night.
Yeah. Well, Victoria Wood as well. I mean, she only passed away the end of last week as well. Which is great. I mean, she had a right talent to putting smiles on people's faces. But let's move on to the book and the tour. Now, I know. Was the tour supposed to come out straight after? You know, was the tour for this book in particular, or was it just you just decided to go for it? How did the tour come about?
No, I mean, since the top of my head blew off in 26 years ago now, or at least 25 when it really blew off. I have just gone with the flow of life and gone with my intuition, and the World Speaking Tour and Phantom Self kind of evolved separately in a way. I was writing the book, and then it was suggested to me that, you know, let's go out on a speaking tour, because I haven't been worldwide since 2011, and the two kind of came together, but they were separate. And the reason that I was very, very motivated to do this world tour, which is going to be incredibly physically demanding, but I love doing it. So you kind of get through it because you love doing it. Is because I've had a feeling for a while, and spoken about it here and there, that the years 2016, 2017, 2018 are very, very important. I explain why in Phantom Self, and a big part of it is to do with this transhumanist agenda, of getting technology inside people. And I explain in Phantom Self the process that we've been taken through to get us there. And when it's put before you in simple terms, with the dots connected, the world that we're witnessing every day can be seen from a completely different angle, but with the addiction to smartphones and all these things. And what's happening is we are being slowly, not even slowly now, quicker and quicker. We're being fused with technology, or at least I say we, those who are allowing themselves to be. And this process is due to not stay where it is, but to move on until there is technology inside the body, which will then start dictating thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. That's been the long-term plan, and now it's unfolding before our eyes. And so the reason I've been so focused on 2016, 2017, 2018 over the years is that I just feel that these years are going to not completely decide, not at all. I mean, there was something in, was it the Daily Express and the Daily Mirror the other day, which was quoting me as saying that we've got 3 years to save the world and save humanity, and 3 years from now, technology will have complete control of the human race. Mm. Well, where they get that from, I have no idea.
No, funny that.
Well, you know, I mean, they got it from an interview I did in which I didn't say that. You know, I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, I said a few years ago that if an elephant flew over Buckingham Palace in a hot air balloon singing "God Save the Queen," the mainstream media would have to find some way of exaggerating what happened.
Absolutely.
And so you get used to that. But what I am saying is that this transhumanist agenda is moving so quickly that 3 years from now, it's going to be much further along the road. Mm. And the further it gets in connecting people to technology, the more the people, the human, is going to be diluted, and the technological is going to be calling the shots. And don't take my word for it. I mean, just listen to people like Ray Kurzweil, the Google executive, and the global PR man for Frankenstein, as I call him, who's really at the forefront of selling this transhumanist agenda as a good thing. Oh, we're going to be superhuman. No, we're not. We'll be subhuman if we go down that road.
DARPA has a big part to play in all of this.
Well, you see, this is the thing. You see Google and you think search engine. But actually, Google is, and in fact, they've changed much of their company name now to Alphabet to try to hide the extent of what they do and what they are involved in. DARPA is the technological development arm of the Pentagon, and it has driven this transhumanist agenda, and it's working in very close concert with Google. Google bought a company called Boston Robotics or something like that. Yeah. Boston Dynamics, I think it was called. And they make robots, and they're developing robots to basically do things that humans do, and in effect to take their jobs, which is going to be happening on a massive scale because that's the agenda. And also to create what I've been writing about for a long time, the robot army, where human troops are dispensed with, and you have literally a robot army controlled by technology. And this is not this mad David Icke sitting in a darkened room. This is happening. I mean, if you know how to put the dots together, the information's in the mainstream. And so when you get a situation where the head of DARPA, a lady called Regina Duggan, suddenly leaves DARPA and becomes an executive of Google, it makes perfect sense, because if you don't know the connections, then this lady who's been heading up this technological development arm of this deeply sinister organization called DARPA suddenly becomes an executive of Google. That's a search engine, isn't it? But when you see what's really going on, it makes perfect sense. And so what Ray Kurzweil is talking about openly and trying to sell it as a good thing is that by 2030, humans will be connected to what he calls the cloud, and will do their thinking from the cloud. And then everything, or as time moves on, the cloud will do more and more of human thinking, and the human will become less and less. This is what he's saying, not what I'm surmising.
Yeah.
And thus, we have to get not just this information, but the picture of what's happening and why and how out to as many people as possible. And that's why I've gone on this world tour, because information is the key. You know, people that are queuing in the early hours to get the latest Apple piece of kit, piece of technology, before anyone else. They first of all, I think that's I think that's a form of mental illness myself. But that's if you take an obsession of that magnitude to be mental illness. But anyway, while they're thinking that it's all about the latest technology and look, I've got this and I've got that, what actually is happening is they're being pulled in like a fish on a hook, reeled in to become totally addicted to technology to the point where they will allow technology inside them. And the process that we've gone on is, first of all, they've had what I might call holdables, like smartphones, where you hold them. And the idea of stage one was to get people addicted to holdables. Well, I mean, that's job done, isn't it?
Yeah.
For vast numbers of people. It's extraordinary. I was in a cafe the other day, and on the next table, there was a child, couldn't have been, more than 18 months, sitting in a high chair with a smartphone while his parents were chatting away. Now, this is what I'm talking about. So get them addicted to holdables, and then pull them in a bit more. Take them to the next stage, which has the name of wearables. This is smartwatches, Google Glass, and Bluetooth on your ear, burning your brain away. Oh, but it's so convenient. All right, okay. And wearables are obviously the next stage, but the big stage they want, and they have a name for this as well, is implantables.
Well, this is fear.
It's happening now.
Yeah. I think fear a lot to do with it as well. Keep track of your children, get them tagged. Fear has a lot of a big part. They're using the fear side of things to really push this microchip and implantables, as you say. But what I'm talking about with this holdables to wearables to implantables is what I've been calling for years the totalitarian tiptoe. You start at A, you're going to Z, but you can't go too fast or people will realize where you're going. So you go in steps as big as you can get away with, but not too big that too many people realize actually the direction they're being taken. And another wonderful example of the microchip totalitarian tiptoe, which was so blatantly going to happen, was when they introduced microchips for domestic animals, dogs particularly, but other domestic animals now. And they said, it's only a choice. You don't have to, but it's good. And now, of course, they've brought in laws to say you have to microchip them. This is the process of taking you through this totalitarian tiptoe, and the same is planned and is unfolding in terms of humans. And the process for humans is this: introduce microchips, done. Make it more and more difficult to function without one. I mean, you take what they've done with credit cards, which is another further back step in this totalitarian tiptoe to microchip people. And they introduce credit cards. Okay, you have a credit card, it's only a choice. And then they make it more and more and more difficult, and sometimes impossible, to function without a credit card. And the process is designed to do that with microchips. Oh, it's just a choice. It's a good thing. It's very weird. If you're not microchipped, we can't deal with you, sir. And then eventually it's compulsory. And that's the process we're looking at. So it's very, very important to get this information out to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, which is why I'm doing it. And the reason that I talk for all day from 10 in the morning to about 10 at night, there are breaks, is because there is a vast tapestry of information to connect, which
on the face of it doesn't connect, but when you see it put together, just opens up a completely different panorama of the world, an explanation of the world and world events, and which has people going, oh yes, I can see it now. That's why they do that, and that's why they do that exactly. So it's very important to do this now, urgently.
Yeah, I had Pippa King on. I don't know if you're aware of Pippa. She does biometrics in schools, and she stood up to the system when she found out her the new thumbprint was coming in. This was years ago, and it was going to be compulsory to the school. And you know, she talks in quite great detail. And then, again, this is yet another step forward towards it. You know, it's a good thing to do, and it's going to keep the children safe with dinner monies going things and library passes. So and they're gradually it, so it becomes the norm for the next generation coming up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I was born in 1952. I'm just coming up to my 64th birthday. Actually, I need a rendition from Paul McCartney or something. And therefore, when I was growing up, and for a long time afterwards, this was not like it is now. And so I can see the difference between what it was and what it is, and thus I can see the extraordinary transformation of society that's taken place, especially in most recent years, in regards to surveillance technology and control. If you're born into the world now, then this is your norm. You know, people tend to judge the world in terms of normal on the basis of what they've experienced. So my normal is not what's going on now. But to people being born now and in the not too distant past, this is their normal. And it's all planned and it's all orchestrated. If you want a global society of total control and not have resistance to it on a scale that can overturn it, then you've got to get the adults of tomorrow who will live in that world. Yeah. Completely at ease with a totally 24/7 world of surveillance and control. And this is why they are targeting the schools. Around the corner from where I'm talking now is a primary school. My sons went there, and my grandchildren have been going there. And when my sons went there, and you know, Jamie, one of them is only 21, 22. There were no walls, there were no gates, there was none of it, and there was no problem. That's the point. There was no problem. Now it looks like what it is. It's a prison. It's got a big high fence around it. It's got locked gates. You go in through one gate, and then there's another lock gate which you have to go through to get to the next section of it. And the only time I've ever seen that is when I've been in a prison, visiting a prisoner who wanted to talk to me about what I do, and a few years ago now, and it was exactly the same process. It's like you know, when you're in a safari park and you're going through a tiger or lion part of it. You go through one gate and it's locked, and then you're waiting there until they open the next gate. This is what we're looking at with these schools now. It's extraordinary.
But as you say, this is going to be the norm for them. This and you know, when the next generation, this is just going to get worse and worse. And as you know, this normal. These people are then going to grow up, as you say, as to our politicians, as to our judges in court, and it's just a way to get across to people that this needs to be broken. This needs to be stopped.
Yeah, well, normal is only what people normally experience. That's it.
Yeah.
People say it's not normal. Well, what is normal? Normal is only what you normally experience.
Yeah.
You know, if you live in an urban street, then traffic going past is your normal. If you live in the countryside in an isolated house, then traffic going past is, oh, there's a car. It's only what you normally experience. And the whole manipulation of human society is, to quote the name of one of my books, it's a perception deception. It has to be, because from perception comes what you will do, what you won't do. It comes your behavior, comes what you'll support and what you won't support, all from your perception. So the whole thing's based on the manipulation of perception. And what they're doing now with children and young people is manipulating their perception to think that A, this 24/7 surveillance is necessary, and B, it's quite normal for it to happen and quite sensible for it to happen. And, you know, what is happening, there is a parting of the ways, really, because I'm looking at so many young people who have grown up with this and yet still are seeing through it and are challenging it. But then I see others who are going in the opposite direction, to the point where my chin drops. I mean, when you've got students deplatforming people, in other words, banning them from speaking at university events because they don't agree with what they're saying. I mean, I grew up in the 60s when students went on protests in favor of free speech.
Absolutely.
Now I'm seeing protests from students against free speech. We had some students who've clearly gone through a genetic mutation, so their backbone has been, mutated out of existence, who claimed in America to be literally traumatized by seeing that someone had written Trump 2016 in chalk on their pavement in their college. And I think there's been a program on BBC this morning, one of these audience participation programs, in which the Students' Union is trying to justify banning people from speaking. And these so-called safe spaces, it must be a safe space. Well, what is a safe space? A safe space is where nothing whatsoever can be done or said to challenge your sense of reality or to question it or any of it. And this is the other thing, you see. This is why, you know, I do these all-day talks and connect the dots, because all these things connect. Political correctness is not about racial respect or gender respect. It's about none of that. It's actually about getting the target population to silence the target population. And that's what they're doing. And so you have a situation where you get people into a state of being where they're basically frightened of their own shadow. This is what is being manipulated into place. And therefore, they look around all the time for things to be frightened of and for authority to protect them from what they've been manipulated to be frightened of. And so you get people who are being targeted for mass slavery by the system, actually supporting the system and campaigning for the system to bring in that which will make them mass slaves. And this is what political correctness is all about. If what you're saying will not stand up to questioning, well, there ain't much bloody validity to what you're saying if you're that frightened. We should let all people have their say and then let people decide what they think of it. And if it's nonsense and if it's ridiculous and if it's so-called offensive, then people will respond to it that way. But the idea is that you don't let anything into the safe space which might upset people, and thus those who are deciding what will or will not upset people are dictating what can be heard and what cannot be heard. And this is the idea, totalitarian tiptoe.
Yeah.
It is to make the entire planet a safe space where nothing can be said that will contribute anything of significance to anything and will not challenge anything. And that's straight out of Orwell's 1984 and Huxley's Brave New World. Why? Because they weren't novels. They were written from an understanding of where the world was being taken.
Yeah. With getting back to the book, Jack, and the phantom self, it seems more people, you're identifying that how people are not connecting with the higher self, the higher consciousness, and they are living within this phantom self that is kind of governed by technology, celebrity, reality TVs, and are literally completely disconnected.
Well, what governs it most, and why I call it phantom self, is self-identity. That's what it is. It's a fake self-identity. What I'm saying is that at our core, in our, if you like, foundation state, we are simply awareness, the state of being aware. That's all we are. I say all we are. It's infinite awareness. Yeah. We are a state of being aware, and because through the five senses, which can see only a ludicrously narrow band of frequency that we call the world, everything's dominated by form. We associate life and we associate thought with form. It's like associating a spacesuit with a person inside. It's a vehicle so they can experience a certain arena they couldn't without the spacesuit.
Yeah.
So our awareness, our state of being aware, experiences this band of frequencies through what we call a body, which is a vehicle that is within the frequency range we want to experience. Without the body, the pure awareness couldn't pick up a pen or tap on the keys of a computer keyboard because the frequency difference is so great. It's like one radio station doesn't affect another unless they're very, very close on the dial. So we need these vehicles. What happens is we self-identify with them, and we when we think of who we are, we think of our name, we think of our income bracket, we think of our family history, our color, our religion, our job. That's who we are. No, that is only what we are experiencing. What we are is awareness, pure awareness, having that experience. Now, if you go deep enough into the shadows, that which is behind this network of manipulation and control knows that. And what it's trying to do, and has actually done brilliantly by keeping out of the public arena the kind of information that I'm talking about here, largely, it's got people to self-identify with the body, the name, the income bracket, the labels, the life story. And what that does is focus attention of awareness on those things and in the realm of those things, i.e. within the realm of the five senses. I'll give you an example. There's a video on the internet, which I saw many years ago. And there are people with a basketball, and they're throwing a basketball around. And it comes up on the screen, follow the ball, and basically say how many times I think it is that the ball is passed from one to another, okay? So people do that. And then at the end, another line comes up, did you see the gorilla? And the vast majority of people go, what gorilla? And then they play the video back. And right in the middle, where the ball was being passed between people and people were concentrating, focused upon the ball, this gorilla, bloke dressed as a gorilla, walks on, looks around and walks off. And the great majority of people who watch that video do not see that because their attention is focused, and they miss things that are in front of them, but they don't see. And this is very symbolic of how it works. What I call phantom self is this label consciousness, this self-identity with the experience as being what we are. And when we're so focused on that, we miss everything else. We miss the inspiration, the intuition, the intuitive guidance from higher levels. Not some extraterrestrial in a spaceship. Other levels of our own awareness. we lose contact with it. It's like me sitting in front of this computer now, and I've got control of the mouse, I've got control of the keyboard, but then suddenly the computer connection to me disappears, and now the computer itself is left to decide where it's going to go on the internet and what it thinks of where it goes. And I'm bashing the mouse and bashing the keys, and nothing's happening because it's not hearing me anymore.
Yeah. And
that is the process. That computer, symbolically, in that state, is what I call phantom self. And phantom self is not only takes on this belief system, which is programmed into it from cradle to grave, not least through the education system, my goodness, and the mainstream media. It then insists, or a lot of it does, that other people must believe what it believes and must download and accept the program that it has. Otherwise, they're wrong because they're not normal. Here we come back to that word again.
Yeah.
They're not normal. Well, if this computer in front of me no longer responded to the mouse and the keyboard, its normal would be in a state of not connecting to the mouse and the keyboard. That's its normal. But someone who opens their mind to and goes beyond the program and starts to get access to other levels of awareness which give you a much different picture of the world, that's their normal too. And I respect the right of people to accept phantom self and live their life in phantom self. That's if that's what they want or that's what they do, then they should do it. But where's the respect coming the other way to people who don't accept it? They're mad, they're crazy, or they're dangerous. This is what's happened throughout history. People have been burned at the stake, of course, by the Roman Church and others because they saw beyond the phantom self and started talking about it. Oh no, because religions are based on phantom self. That's what they are. They're phantom self religions, just as we have phantom self politics and we have phantom self science. We have phantom self medicine.
We have phantom self friends who were getting affected by someone we don't know because this is the way it's being programmed, like via social media. You know, people are so wrapped up that, you know, what they end up in these bickering arguments with people just because one person disagrees with another person. And people get so enthralled, and these people don't know each other. They've never had a proper conversation. But because of one person expressed their view, you know, okay, granted, a lot of them are probably government-paid trolls who are fighting, you know, anybody who is speaking out. But I mean, this is just another form that this isn't reality. The social media world is not reality.
Well, but it becomes reality.
It becomes, and it's become the norm.
Yeah, and this is another point which links into the transhumanist agenda. One of the things I cover in Phantom Self is how, and this has been done through the mainstream research even, people only want to listen to the mainstream, how the brain is being rewired by this technology, how people's attention span is being squeezed to a ridiculous level. I mean, so many people don't read books anymore because they haven't got the attention span. They've got the attention span of 147 letters on Twitter. And this is all a process of coldly engineered rewiring of human perception. You know, there's a lady, I think her name's called Susan Greenfield. She's a member of the House of Lords, and she's a scientist working in this kind of arena. And she wrote a book, which I read a few months ago, last year, in which she's talking about how the human brain and human perceptions are being dramatically transformed by interaction with these internet, media, smart technologies. So people are thinking differently, or they're not thinking at all. And this is all connected into the addiction to smartphones, etc., and the addiction to stimulation. You see, if you're sitting there reading a book then you're stimulated, but you're stimulated in a much milder process. You're going from fact to fact and what have you. But when you get on the social media, it's constant repetition of stimulation. The brain then gets addicted to stimulation, just as the body can get addicted to a drug. Same thing, same process. And thus, they get bored instantly if this constant stimulation is not happening. And it's not stimulation of a mind expanding way. It's basically an electronic stimulation of the brain. And therefore, you give them a book and it's like, oh, no, I can't be doing with a book. And there were some people I quote in Phantom Self, again, scientists who concluded themselves before they started researching it that actually, why can't I read a book anymore? Why can't I hold my attention anymore to read a book of any length? And then they started to realize that what was happening is that we're being rewired. And so when you think of a toddler in a high chair with a smartphone in a cafe, what the heck is going to happen to their brain, which is still forming, by the time they become an adult? It will not be a human brain as we've come to know human brains in terms of the way it operates.
There's a section in the book where you mention about alternative media telling people to wake up and that people should start getting their heads together to work out a response to global tyranny and madness. And this basically, it's not going to take us. We can all be woken up to it, but this isn't going to immediately change everything. It's got to start within you. And waking up to what you actually are, not this phantom self, to this greater higher self. Am I taking this right, David?
Well, the alternative media is not a single entity.
No.
It's a vast spectrum from almost imperceptible from the mainstream media across to people who are, and not nearly enough, mind, who are questioning everything they've ever been told and everything that the system tells us is real. And that's where the answers lie, you see.
Yeah.
See,
it's got to go beyond that, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm all in favour of the alternative media, and because I operate within it. And I've spent these last 25 years exposing the 5 cents manipulation of engineered wars and banking scams and media manipulation and scientific manipulation and medical manipulation, big pharma manipulation, all of which we need to know about. But if you only stop there, you are basically a movie correspondent. You are exposing and doing a critique of the movie on the screen. But the movie's not coming from the screen. It's coming from somewhere else. It's being projected from somewhere else. It's founded on something else. And if you don't identify that something else and change that something else, the movie can't change, no matter what you may write about it and expose about it. And so what I see with the alternative media is that vast chunks of it, while they critique the world of the scene differently to the mainstream media, sometimes not very differently, sometimes very differently, while they're doing that, they still dismiss with a wave of the arrogant hand anyone that's pushing the cutting edge further, who's going deeper into it, because they invariably come from a system belief system. It might be a belief in mainstream science being real when it's something out of the Stone Age, or they might have a religious belief. None of these belief systems are negotiable, and thus, if you go beyond them or question them or go into something else that would show them to be in a different light, you are dismissed with the same vehemence and the same often abuse as they're dismissing the mainstream with.
Yeah.
And it's ironic that I get as much, if not more, abuse from the so-called alternative media as I do from the mainstream, because I'm not interested in going round and round in circles. I have one thing that is clearly true, as something I know that is clearly true. At no point in this body, in this reality, can we possibly know even a fraction of everything. Therefore, whatever we know, there's always more to know.
Yeah.
What I want to know is what there is more to know. And therefore, when you do that, you are constantly challenging that which has decided that what it knows is all it needs to know. And so you are constantly uniting people who otherwise would be, fighting or in conflict with each other. You're uniting them in common condemnation of you, because you are challenging the norms of all of them. Because whatever our norms are, that it's only where we are now. It's only what we know now. I mean, look at the norms of what we call the past compared with what we accept to be norms now. Completely different. But people who challenged those norms in the past were given the same abuse, and even worse, as people do now, because the program still reacts the same way. And this program starts when you leave the womb, well, at least then. You then get access. You get influenced in terms of your self-identity and perceptions by parents who've been through the same system you're about to go through. Within 3-4 years now, and they're trying to get it even less. You're sitting in a classroom facing an authority figure who's telling you when you must be there, when you can leave, when you can eat, when you can't eat, when you can speak, when you can't speak, etc. And that goes on basically through your formative years. And then you go into higher education, where nowadays you go into debt for much of the rest of your life to pay for your own programming. And in this process, from very, very early in life to well into the teenage years, the system has been telling you its version of reality, its version of you, its version of possibility, its version of reality, all the way through those years. Is it any surprise that people then go through their lives believing in what the system's told them, and therefore dismissing by reflex action anyone who is challenging what they have been told to believe in? And then, of course, when people go out into the world, as they say, from at the end of their education in university or college or whatever, and they go on to be politicians or journalists or teachers or professors or scientists or doctors or journalists, they go out into these institutions that direct society with the same base programming. And so if you got a journalist, he's not going to do a medical story by going to an alternative practitioner. He's going to go to a doctor, because his programming says medical treatment equals mainstream doctors. If he's doing a story on reality, he's not going to come to someone like me. It's going to go to who's kind of studied it for 25 years.
At university.
He's going to go to, I've never been near a university, thank you, God. But I played for Oxford United Football Club once. So I used to pass it on the way to the ground every day. But then he will go to a scientist who will give him the song sheet version of reality, which is kind of, mainstream science's version of reality is laughable and provable by quantum physics to be nonsense. And so what you get, once this base programming is in place, you get this self-perpetuation where everybody self-perpetuates the program as if it's true. This is where peer pressure comes from. Those who've been through the program, accepted the program, then give a hard time to anyone who's challenging and questioning the program. This is what's going on all the time. And, the alternative media and anyone else can go on for as long as they like about this, that, the other, and so they should. This information needs to circulate. That's what I'm doing in this tour, but without addressing phantom self and deprogramming from the state's download of perception, we ain't going anywhere, because it's based on a perception deception. And until that perception deception is exposed and dealt with, then the perception deception that has created where we are is going to continue. It's in the perceptions of people, it's in the state of consciousness of people that the answers lie, not in stockpiling weapons.
No, absolutely. I know you with also within the alternative movement, alternative media movement, you also get people, well, it's all very well, you know, you putting this information out, but what's the solution?
Well, anyone asking that is still in phantom self, because once you start to break out of that perception program, that self-identity, and instead of identifying who you are with David Icke, i.e., I'm David Icke, I'm not. David Icke is my experience. I am infinite awareness, having that experience. Same with everybody else. Once you move your sense of self-identity from I am Charlie Smith to I am infinite awareness, having an experience as Charlie Smith, your mind starts to expand. Your program starts to break down, because the program exists and survives because you self-identify with Charlie Smith being you. And then things start to happen. And then suddenly, because you're putting out a different energy, a different, what I call magnetic attraction, i.e. electromagnetic attraction, you start to draw to you new people, new experiences, new opportunities, new insights, which start to guide you along the road towards which you can make your contribution to solutions. See, with a solution, you can find a solution, or you can remove the cause of the problem, which is always the most effective. Removing the cause of the problem in this case is removing the perception of self-identity, of phantom self. Once that starts to go, then everything changes, because it is as it is because of phantom self and self-identity with it. So, you know, it's not about what are the solutions. There is one, if you want to use that word, solution, and that's breaking out of the programming so you can see what you couldn't see before. And this is the big key. Once you start getting this guidance, this language of life, as I call it, where the language of life and experience is clearly pushing you in a certain direction, you then have a decision. Am I going to go with that? Because there'll be things that you'll find challenging when you're challenging the norm. Or am I just going to say, no, I don't want those challenges? Well, if you don't want those challenges, there are no solutions. There are no solutions, because those challenges are part of what they call the solution. Because when you start to challenge and question the norms, those who are still welded to the norms are going to respond against you. If you're not prepared to take that to make a difference, then don't even start, because it's inevitable that's going to happen. But instead of saying, oh, poor me, just celebrate the fact that you can see something that these other people can't, and celebrate the fact that you have that good fortune, or actually you made a good decision, rather than feel sorry for yourself that they're not being nice to you.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're nearly out of time, David. So what date does the tour kick off?
Well, I'm speaking on the Isle of Wight on June the 4th. It's a kind of a warm-up, because I say a warm-up, I ad-lib it, so I've got to give myself an idea of how long it's going to be. And there's about 1,600 illustrations and stuff. But so that's sold out. And Shepherd's Bush in London on the 18th of June was also sold out, but we got a ticket to, we got a call this morning, this very morning, saying that the Shepherd's Bush event can't take place there because the building work to make it safe, that's been going on for some time, is way over where it should be, and it's not going to be finished by June the 18th when I speak there. So we're in the process now, in fact it's happening as I speak, of moving to another venue. Now this other venue is, if we get the one that we want, is going to have more tickets available, because it's a much bigger venue. So there'll be more tickets to see that London event on June the 18th. And if they go to the website, davidicke.com, there'll be information about that in the next day, even perhaps the next few hours.
Yeah.
And certainly by, I hope, tomorrow.
It's such a shame, though, because it's such an iconic place for you. 25 years after Wogan, and it would have been perfect to have gone back there.
Yeah, it would. But
it is what it is, I suppose.
It is what it is, and we now have the ability to talk to more people. So that's but not very long before it's going to happen now. And then I'm going over Australia in July and August, and then to America in September, and then all over Europe in the run up to Christmas. And we've already had 2,000 tickets taken in Bucharest.
Wow.
For an event in Bucharest. I've never been to Romania, and yet here we are. 2,000 tickets gone already, and that event's not taking place till November. So there is an awakening going on, and it is global. We've just got to push it on and push it on and push it on this next 3 years. Yeah.
And of course, the book is available at davidicke.com, The Phantom Self, and it's a lot different to the other books I found. It was a lot kind of lighter. It was looking a lot more on the spiritual side of things, and it's a definite must read. So davidicke.com there. David, thank you so much for coming back on. It's been too long. We won't leave it so long next time. Good luck with the tour. Good luck for sorting out somewhere in London.
Okay.
And good luck with everything.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks,
Bye.
David. Take care. Wow. I enjoyed that today. Didn't have to talk much. Just let him have the floor. An interesting thing you did say about recognising that you are not just... I'm just not Lou Collins, I'm a mum. You go further, and there's a really good exercise that I do with some dear friends of mine, Dean and Jay. It's called the Diab, and Jay always pushes me into doing it. I never want to do it. You sit in front of someone. She did 8 days of it, about 10 hours a day, and you sit in front of somebody, and neither of you say anything, and one person's asked you, who are you? And that's all they say. And you have to sit there for... I mean, she did this for 10 hours a day. I don't know how she did. Just sat there. And you basically, who are you? And then you start off with, I'm Louise. I'm a Cancerian. I'm a mum. I'm English. But you go deeper and deeper. And it's such a difficult process. I only did it for 15 minutes. And that was the one that's such a long, it felt like 15 hours. But it really does. You just keep going deeper into actually who you are. You get away from, as David puts it, the phantom self, and you literally go so deep. You end up in tears. I mean, it's a very, very difficult process. And it's well worth doing if you've got someone to sit there opposite you, and the two of you work together and have the patience to sit there. It's a very valuable experience. Anyway, next week's show, Thomas Sheridan will be joining me, talking about megaliths and all sorts of other things like he does. So he's going to be on next week live from 11. This show will be going up on my website later on, and I just need to say a huge thanks to George Greek Trucker on YouTube. He's fantastic. He makes, without my knowledge, he just goes and he does videos on YouTube, because I haven't got a clue how to do it. Even in this day and age, I don't know how to upload a static picture with an MP3. And George does it all for me. So there will be a YouTube of this. Thank you very much, George, for doing that for me. And that'll be on his channel, George Greek Trucker, on YouTube. This will be up on the website, loucollins.uk. And as I say, I will be back next week from 11 o'clock with the wonderful Thomas Sheridan. I'm going to leave you now with... beautiful little song called Night Falls. It's by Booker Shade, and one of my favourite tunes. To say thank you so much for David for sparing his valuable time to come on the show today and give it how he sees it. So that's it for me. Thanks very much to Sound Art for having me, and I'll be back, as I say, next week live from 11 with the wonderful Thomas Sheridan.